We talked to over 2,000 people about what they actually mean when they say work-life balance. We discovered something surprising. They're not looking for balance at all. The term work-life balance implies that work and life are on opposite ends of a scale, constantly fighting each other for your time and attention. If we actually achieved perfect balance, that would technically mean that 12 hours were for work and 12 hours were for life 7 days a week. Nobody wants that. Also, when we dug further into those conversations with 2,000 plus people, we discovered that most didn't want to be acting as if work isn't part of your life at all, or as if it's a separate thing that steals from your real life. In fact, they described wanting the opposite, something else entirely. In this episode, we reveal the 3 key areas that people are actually looking for when they say work-life balance, and more importantly, an effective way to get what you want. What you really want. I'm Scott Anthony Barlow, the CEO of Happen to Your Career and host of the Happen to Your Career podcast. We've worked with people all over the world, and there are really interesting parallels behind what people actually want here. When we would ask, what do you mean by work-life balance? The first thing that people would say was flexibility. But what does that even mean? The answers were revealing. To give you an idea of what people actually meant, picture this. Your kid has a school performance at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. In a normal situation, you're probably stressing about asking for time off, making up hours, using precious PTO. But what you really want, isn't balance. It's the flexibility to shift your schedule without guilt or consequences, specifically the flexibility to decide when you're working. Our research shows that when people gain more control over when they work, whether it's adjusting start times, working remotely on specific days, or even having the freedom to step away for important life events, their satisfaction increases dramatically, even when their total working hours remain unchanged, and sometimes even when they increase. This indicates that the problem isn't about balancing work hours against life hours. It's about having the flexibility to integrate both according to your specific needs. The second thing people are actually seeking is what we refer to as autonomy, or the freedom to decide how you get your work done. Now, a lot of times people will say, I want remote, or I want a hybrid schedule. But it's not just about being remote or in office or even hybrid. It's about having control over your work process, your approach to problems, your methods that you're using. It's about not having someone micromanaging every aspect of your day and gaining influence into how the work gets done. And when people gain more autonomy in their roles, we consistently see improvements not just in job satisfaction, but also in physical and mental health. Studies have even linked lack of work autonomy with higher instances of heart disease and other stress-related conditions. But what's fascinating is that people with high autonomy often report feeling more balanced, even in demanding work environments. This suggests that what we're really craving isn't equal time distribution, but greater agency and control over our work. The third theme that comes up is simply to work less. But this is where it really gets interesting. When we dig deeper, usually this stems from 2 root causes. First, we realize that those same people struggle to shut it off. Their work mentally follows them everywhere because they're in roles that don't align with their strengths or values, or because they don't have effective practices or systems in place to be able to shift their focus when they're not working. Second, they don't have effective boundaries. And boundaries aren't just something you set once and forget. They're a skill that you continuously practice. We've found that professionals who are aligned with their work, doing things that leverage their natural strengths, connect to what they value, don't feel the same degree of exhaustion or the need for recovery. They can work a full day and still have energy for their personal lives. Pretty cool, right? Meanwhile, though, those struggling in misaligned roles, misaligned organizations often feel depleted regardless of how many or how few hours they work. The key difference isn't time allocation. It's boundary establishment and work alignment. So if balance is the wrong goal here, what should you pursue instead? Some people use the term work-life integration, but I prefer work-life intentionality. Now, this is more than just semantics. The approach here recognizes a fundamental truth. Perfect balance is impossible. Something will always be out of balance. The key is making intentional choices about what can temporarily be out of balance at different times. It's deciding where chaos can temporarily exist while you focus on what matters most right now. I love the book that Gary Keller and Jay Papasan wrote together called The One Thing. By the way, Jay came on the podcast later to talk about the book and the ideas. We'll link that up in the description. But extraordinary results require focused time. They point that out. And sometimes that means that your work gets more attention. Sometimes your family does. Sometimes it's your health. The question isn't, how do I balance everything perfectly? It's what deserves my focus right now and what can wait. So how do you develop this practice of work-life intentionality? Here are 3 high-level ways that you can begin to understand how this works. Number 1, clarify your priorities. What truly matters most to you? For me, it's being present for my kids' important moments while building a company that helps thousands of people find fulfilling work. Knowing this makes decisions more simple. Second, pursue work that aligns with who you are. Now, this is not something that's easy to do. I recognize that. But I want you to understand that when your work leverages your natural strengths, it connects to what you value, it stops being this separate thing that you need to balance against your life. Instead, it becomes a much more integrated part of your life that energizes you rather than constantly drains you. Third, develop boundary setting skills. This means learning to communicate your needs clearly, managing expectations, getting comfortable with the occasional discomfort, sometimes very frequent discomfort. And I just want you to remember that boundaries are not just physical, they're mental as well. And also, you've probably noticed that as we've gone through and we've defined what people actually want here, if you can get to those specifics, it gives you a better ability to ask for what you want. And when you can ask for what you want, it becomes easier to get what you want. Not a surprise. But there's also a bigger truth here. Work and life aren't opposing forces. They're interconnected parts of your single whole life. You've got one. So when you find work that fits who you are and how you want to live, the artificial divide between work and life begins to dissolve. And that doesn't mean that work consumes your identity or that you should be available 24/7. That's not what I'm talking about, unless you want that. Quite the opposite. It means finding work that respects and supports your whole life, including your need for rest, relationships, personal interests, whatever happens to be most important to you. This is not my first rodeo, though. We've done this for 20 years and since 2012 professionally. And we've helped thousands of people make transitions to work that fits them. So part of that means stop chasing balance and instead pursue alignment between your work, your values, strengths, desired lifestyle, because we find that when people do that, those are the same people who ultimately feel the most fulfilled. See you on the next episode of Happen to Your Career. Adios. I'm out. If you're ready to move beyond the myth of work-life balance and find work that truly fits your life, definitely check out more of our videos. In fact, this next one.